Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to another Planet FPL People's Poll podcast, where we set 3 topics to the FPL Twitter community for a topic for them to choose for today's podcast. This week, we gave them a choice of 3 topics. The first being clicks in football dressing rooms. Are they necessarily just negative? Can they be a positive thing? Also, I wanted to discuss the idea of homophobia and what I believe is an increase in rise in terms of homophobic chants within football stadiums. But the winner of the vote is what's currently going on at Everton following Sunday night sacking of Rafa Benitez. And at very short notice, I'm delighted to say, standing in for Suj is our Everton correspondent, Sean Norton. How are you, Sean?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Bar the football stuff, you're okay.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's first, there's quite a lot for us to cover off. I want to talk about some of the financials with you and stuff and what's happening with the ownership and what might happen next. But firstly, on Benitez, how are you feeling about it now that he's gone?
Well, it had to happen, didn't it? It was, to some respect, it was actually overdue. I think after the hiding that we took to Liverpool, I think a lot of people wouldn't have been surprised if he got sacked then. Everything that's happened after that has just dragged out the inevitable. Sadly, as you know, and some other people will, I believe foolishly, in hindsight, that he'd do a good job for us and be a good successor to Carlo Ancelotti. But I've got to say, I couldn't have been any more wrong. And the sort of Benitez that we saw was far cry from the one I thought we would be getting, and in terms of style of play, set up and players used. It just was really baffling decisions that he was making at the end that just almost smacked of a man that wanted to get the sack.
Nice payoff, I believe. Was it got about 8 million or so?
Not sure. These things are, I mean, it depends who you believe, because there tends to be break clauses put in and stuff, and I don't know. I don't think it matters really. I mean,
it might do though, because you're not flush with cash, as we'll talk about a little bit. But I'm glad you said, because I know in the summer you were probably in a minority already before the season started in terms of, look, you really wanted to give him a chance. He's in charge. You wanted to give him a chance. And you made some really good points during correspondent week about the fact that partly because of the financial situation, you probably did need a pragmatic approach with a manager. The problem with pragmatism is if you don't have the results to go with it, it's dire to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the only thing that was sort of palpable about when we had Sam Allardyce. You knew that it wasn't going to be pretty, but you knew you'd get the points. This fella's come in. The football wasn't ever as bad as Sam Allardyce. It's just the approach was just baffling. Just too many things that just absolutely begged belief. And we spoke and said the absolute thing he needs is a good start, and he got that. And then obviously the injuries come, and I think it started to unravel once Yerry Mina got injured. You think back to us getting a draw at Old Trafford, and on that day we should have won. Tom Davis, plays a bit of a better pass or has a shot, scores, we win the game, and then we
the offside goal.
We go into the West Ham game, and whilst we never played great that day, West Ham were flying. I wasn't overly impressed with West Ham. They nicked the goal, but it was a tight game. But then after that, there was obviously the Watford debacle where we were winning. And the way that game unravelled was just staggering. And then from then, it just never ever looked like the team just never looked like they were gonna win a game. Even when good old Arsenal coming out us out, as they have a habit of doing, we shouldn't. The Richarlison goals were unlucky, but Aubameyang at the end, I mean,
and the Nketiah miss as well.
Yeah, but particularly Aubameyang. I was watching it with my son, and I sort of looked away. As far as I was concerned, it was 2-2. So if we hadn't won that, that's 0 wins in 13 games. I mean, what Premier League team ever goes on a run like that? It's just absolutely staggering. You'd think somewhere along the line, even given all the injuries, he'd have been able to put something together that would get us a few wins. And Nichols 1-0, which is what we were sort of expecting that we were going to see, similar to what he'd done at Newcastle. But right throughout, the 19 games or whatever it was he was manager for, he just left the midfield wide open. Just the setup of the team was too stretched. And the one thing that, Michael Keane only resembles a defender when he's alongside Yerry Mina and he's playing relatively deep. Carlo Ancelotti recognised that, sort of said to them, like, you don't go any higher up than halfway in your own half. And they just stayed there. But Benitez has got him pushing up. There's no one in front of him protecting him. And you saw it against Norwich. All it took was one bad pass. And he's woefully exposed. And the rate that we were conceding goals was just crazy. I mean, if you concede 3 goals to Brighton, 2 to Hull, who were 19th in the Championship, and 2 in 17 minutes to a team that hadn't scored for about 6 games.
You could have been 3. I watched the game at Hull. You could have been 3-0 down before you started playing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's just staggering. I mean, my only recollection of this type of thing with football teams is when they don't want to play for the manager anymore. Confidence is that low. They don't believe in what's happening. And you see individual mistakes all over the show. And that's what we were regularly seeing. Seamus Coleman seemed to be making a mistake on a weekly basis, and Michael Keane wasn't far behind him.
I mean, some of the statistics, this isn't going to make you feel better, but just to kind of highlight where we're at, you're on 19 points from 19 played. You're currently 6 points clear of Norwich, who've obviously turned you over at the weekend. In most seasons, you'd be in bigger trouble than what you currently are in because of the point totals of the bottom 4 being well addressed. We discussed on Monday's podcast that it might even be that 30-ish points could even keep you up. Like, I mean, if you stay on a point per game, 38 points is going to be enough by the looks of it, certainly. So you're not in panic stations, but you're certainly looking over your shoulder. What's more concerning is you referenced, obviously, that you did COTC with Mark Hammond before you played Norwich. You won. Then you played ever so well at Old Trafford, as spoken about, and you had a number of players missing that day through injury. Then the West Ham game came, and it was a really flat game for whatever reason. Then the Watford, and it was like that. You'd gone from looking like a good side who'd made a really good start to the season to almost overnight going, shit, they're abysmal in the space of a couple of games. You're on 19 points. You took 14 points from the first 7. It's a good job that the 2 North London clubs have travelled to Merseyside over the last 3-4 months, because your only points since game week 7 are beating Arsenal 2-1, the 0-0 draw with Tottenham, which I want to say since game week 9 is the only time you haven't conceded first in a Premier League game, which obviously finished 0-0. And the only other point you've got, and credit to them, I don't know how you did it, was the draw at Chelsea.
Yeah, back at the league.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, the game, look, when you see the games that are getting postponed now, how that game even went ahead. But it is fortunate, actually, that it did. Absolutely.
You probably, if you put your full team out, you probably would have
lost.
Would
have got battered. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's terrible, though, isn't it? 5 points since game week 7.
Well, we are the worst team in the league. You take those first 4 games out, we are easily the worst team in the league, and that's why it sort of feels like, we've got lead boots on. So as much as there's a gap, I don't think it's only going to stay there until Newcastle, who will inevitably pick up a win or 2. Norwich are obviously going to get, a confidence booster from beating us.
They're the ones who's going to stay up because everyone's written them off. It's fairly obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching a little bit of Norwich, and I don't actually think they've been as bad as people sort of make them out to be. I mean, they've obviously been struggling.
I think it's because it's been so tame in terms of scoring.
So because if you can't score goals in this league, you're always going to struggle. And it's not like they're good enough to keep clean sheets week in, week out. But they haven't been. They've had the odd heavy defeat here and there. But I knew by the way that we played against Goodison, knew it was going to be a difficult game. We're struggling to get wins from anywhere. So I knew going into it was going to be tough. But to be basically out the game after 17 minutes, it was just. But this is what I mean about the manager. And I don't know how any of the players could have seen his approach to the game and had any confidence that they could go there and get a win. I mean, playing Salomon Rondon was just the absolute just embodiment of negligence to me. Why anybody would think you could put him in a sort of number 10 role and have the likes of Townsend on the bench and El Ghazi, who we just signed. I don't know what goes through his head.
And then mitigating in the fact that you've basically not had Calvert-Lewin since game week 3.
No, there is in terms of, you can't.
You'd probably be on more points, wouldn't you?
Well, you'd like to think so, but it's every manager has injuries, don't they? I mean, we spoke about it. I said, I think we'd probably finish 10th, and it'd be a half decent season for us, given who we'd sold and the financial situation, transfers, etc. I thought 10th would be a decent first season, and then let's see how we can build on that and whether he's got any funds to do anything with. But I did say if we get injuries, then, it could quite quickly go pear-shaped. And that's exactly what happened, because we just haven't got strength and depth anyway. I mean, there's holes in the starting 11. Never mind strength and depth. Okay. Seamus Coleman should not be starting games for Everton.
That's sad, that though, isn't it?
Any Premier League team.
Seamus Coleman's been incredible for you, mate. It's sad to hear that.
Yeah. But this is what we do. We've done it with Tim Howard, and we've done it with other players. It's like they just take it for granted, and we don't need to do anything with the right back situation. We've got Seamus Coleman, but no one's looking at. Well, actually, he's getting on now, and his performances are getting worse, and he's not going to suddenly, get better, get quicker, and I feel really sorry for him. Seamus Coleman should just be somebody that plays for us every now and then when we're playing a League Cup game or an FA Cup game against a second tier or third tier team. If we've got an injury crisis and there's no one that can cover his position, he shouldn't be playing week in, week out. I remember talking to you when we got Sadabi in on loan. That was about 2 seasons ago, maybe 3, and I was saying this is the beginning of the phasing out of Seamus Coleman. Now, Sadabi started well enough, but he proved that he didn't have it. I just expected somebody else to come along, but no.
In fairness, obviously Nathan Patterson's been bought from Rangers, but we haven't seen him yet.
No, and that's the thing. The Norwich result was bad enough. I speak about Rondon, but why was Gomez playing in a 2 with Doucouré? Who's going to win the ball there? Who's going to protect the defence? And then Seamus Coleman as a stinker. He substitutes him, which was fine. But then he puts Ben Godfrey, who's not very good on the ball. He plays him at fullback. Defensively, they're his strengths. Not going forward. Just take Coleman off. Put Patterson on. We're getting beat. We're going to have to go for the game. Give the lad a chance. But no, he doesn't. He puts Godfrey at fullback, and he can't do anything when he crosses the halfway line. And then he didn't put a third sub on when Anthony Gordon was clearly out of gas. And he's got Townsend, who come on and won us the game against Hull. And it's just mind blowing. How on earth he's making these decisions and what his thinking is behind it. But the guy never comes out and explains anything. He just always harped on about how he's come to fix historical issues, and now we've got so many injuries. It's like, no, it's not enough, mate. You've got to give us some sort of explanation as to what were you thinking and what you're going to do differently going forward. And the reality is, he didn't do anything differently that made any sense. He went to wing backs after he throws Dean out the squad.
Yeah. I watched the Brighton game, Seamus Coleman at left wing back. And
I mean, it's just laughable. Let's be honest. If you were trying to sabotage Everton, that is exactly the type of thing that you would do.
Well, I mean, Liverpool fans will joke about that, but let's part that there. I don't believe anything other than it was well intentioned and wanted to do well for the football club.
Absolutely, it's just to sort of exaggerate to make a point. It's like the guy can't play in his own position. Why would you ever think playing him on the opposite side in a wing back role was a good idea? I just don't get it.
There'll be people on the outside looking at the business this window and having real questions. So Patterson got bought. Mikalenko's been bought from Kiev. And I thought he was okay, what I saw of him at Hull, but he had a few nightmare moments at Norwich at the weekend.
Yeah.
But people were saying to me, well, hang on, where have Everton got this money from? And I kept saying, well, that's because Luca Dean will get sold. But there's a lot of people on the outside looking at this at the moment going, hang on, you've backed the manager versus a much loved player who's been sold. And a couple of days after you've sold him, you've now sacked the manager. Can you make sense of that? I think it was probably clear that Dean was probably going a month ago. So it's not like a shock culture. Suddenly it's done. And the fact that the other two players were coming in was clear indication that Dean was going to go. But from an outsider's perspective, it just looks like a complete mess. It's like, it feels like they backed the manager on Wednesday. You've lost one more game and now they've sacked him. That's how it looks on the outside to many people.
Yeah. I think me and General Zod had sort of predicted months and months ago. We said that it was highly likely that we'd sell Luca Dean. This was before anything happened with Benitez. Because we said, we knew because of the financial situation.
Sellable asset.
We need to get rid of somebody. And the most obvious one was Dean, given his age and the sort of money that you probably get for him. Because the only other real alternatives were Jordan Pickford. And then you've obviously got Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So if you line them up, the one that makes sense is Lucas Dean. And I think where Benitez has been naughty is he shouldn't have been so willing to discuss the issues that were going on. I mean, the guy was asked a question, so he's got to answer in some degree. But most Premier League managers sort of give a non-answer, don't they? And they'll say they keep, unless you're Jose Mourinho, and then they'll say they'll keep it behind closed doors. That's for us to sort out internally. But Benitez was only too happy to talk about it. I think that's because Dean's played into his hands with issues with the system. And Benitez has thought, excellent, you're going to take the fall for this, not me. I'm gonna paint the picture that you're the trouble causer, that you forced me into it, and then I'm home free, sort of thing.
Did he get Marcel Brands forced out as well, Benitez?
Well, that's the common, it's the common opinion. I'm not completely convinced.
It feels like Brands took the fall because originally Moshiri wanted to keep backing Benitez. Is how it feels a bit to me.
Yeah. Well, I think Marcel Brands had just had enough, and I think the Brands had allegedly was sort of with Kenwright saying to Moshiri, "Do not appoint Rafa Benitez," and Moshiri's just gone against the pair of them and decided to appoint him anyway. So there was tension there to begin with, and then at the derby, when we spoke about it on Clash of the Correspondents, there was the clip of the guy who was sort of having a go at Brands and saying, about recruitment. And then Marcel Brands said to him, well, is it just the players? Which was definitely direct pop at the manager. And I think he will have, he's a proud man. And he's got a reputation, not necessarily built at Everton, but, they've got him the Everton job. And I think he's just gone and just said, this is going to work. There's no point in being here. He's never been allowed to do his job fully. I've criticised him because I don't think he's free from all blame. He's definitely had input on a lot of the transfers, and the majority of the transfers we've made while he's been at the club have all been £25 million, and virtually all of them have not justified that money in any way, shape, or form. Dean was a good transfer. Yerry Mina, on the face of it, was a good transfer because he's a cracking player. He makes Michael Keane look like a centre-back. Even Mason Holgate, when he plays with him, he makes look like a centre-back. Without Yerry Mina, they look like Sunday League players. But his injury record is obviously horrendous. Now, if his injury record wasn't what it was, you could say he probably wouldn't be at Everton anyway. But if you're going to spend over £20 million on a centre-half, you need to get him on the pitch. So Yerry Mina is probably, sort of middle ground. He's not proved to be a good signing because of the injuries, but he's not a bad signing. But after that, you're struggling. I mean, can't tell me Gomez is a £20 million plus footballer. How much of that is down to his injury? I don't know. But I said at the time when we loaned him, it's a cracking loan. Don't spend over 20 million on it.
For the benefit of the listeners, I just want to run through Everton's 20 million plus signings in the last 5 years. And not many of them have turned out good. Sigurdsson, Richarlison, I think, thumbs up. You'll certainly get the money back on that as worst case scenario. Alex Iwobi, 27 million. Yerry Mina, Balassi. Balassi, I feel a bit sorry for because he was doing okay and he did have a really serious injury. Michael Keane, Pickford, Moyes Ken, who, to be fair, you'll get the money back on as well. Ben Godfrey, David Klassen disappeared as quickly as he arrived. Alan, Jean-Philippe Gabamin, we've barely seen. There was a game he came on recently. I went, oh, that's what he looks like 2.5 years after he'd signed. Andre Gomez, Mikolenko. I don't think that's quite right, but he's on this list I'm looking at. Morgan Schneidlin, Theo Walcott, Cenk Tosun. Wow.
And that is exactly where all the money's gone. And when people say, how could Everton have spent £500 million and be so poor, that list is exactly it, because 95% of that list is just a waste of money. It's literally a waste of money.
I mean,
and
there's only 3 players on there you could look at and say there's actually potential resale profit on them.
So these players come in for massive fees and then they just stay at the club and sit the contracts out, and then they get moved on for next to nothing. Cenk Tosun is still an Everton player. It feels like he's played for us for 10 years or been on the books for 10 years.
Is he really worse than Rondon?
No, he's not.
He's not. So why hasn't he been playing?
Exactly. Well, exactly. And this is the thing about, Benitez again with his bizarre decisions. I mean, against Brentford, we were slinging crosses in the box. We were crying out for another centre forward on the pitch. We had 3 on the bench. We didn't bring anybody on.
I actually have a little bit of sympathy for Rondon. I'm sure Evertonians don't, but I've seen him at West Brom and at Newcastle give teams absolute nightmares with his physicality. But he's been in China for a couple of years, hasn't he? And I think your levels regress and you come back. To come back to the Premier League after that, and he obviously turned up and he wasn't fully fit, was he? He was obviously Benitez's he's signing and stuff. For the benefit of the listeners, Sean, can you explain what's going on with the ownership structure of the club? Because a lot of people probably seen the media. Farhad Moshiri is the man in charge. He spent most of the money. He's at the front of trying to redo the stadium. What is Bill Kenwright's role now within the football club?
Well, so he's the chairman, and so he's basically looking after the sort of the day-to-day operations of the club. But it's almost like he's just the face of Everton. I mean, not that you see him very often, and ever, but he's the guy that seems to, be looking after the people who are already at the club. And if there's any vacancies, which we've got a shed load of vacancies at the minute now, because we just got rid of Benitez and all his team.
They've all gone, I've seen you.
Yeah, after Benitez getting rid of a load of people that were already at the club. But Bill sort of backfills these jobs with almost anybody that's got anything to do with Everton Football Club. It is very much a job for the boys scenario. Once Marcel Brands left, Brands was on the board. Another mind-blowing decision. We didn't just bring him in. We put him on the board straight away. So with him going, we needed to replace him. He's been replaced with Graham Shaw. I don't know what, I don't know what the full process is there. It's not explained because we don't explain anything. So yeah, he was a hell of a player for us, but what's he supposed to offer in terms of getting this club moving forward, doing, putting in place some sort of strategy with the board, where's the innovation going to come from? I mean, I have a joke about our club shop, because it doesn't surprise me we can't run the team, because the shops are the joke. You only have to look at the couple of doors down in Liverpool 1, where Liverpool have got their shop, and it's just night and day. They've got a modern shop. You can see that it's very innovative. Obviously, I don't go in it, but from the outside, you can see, that's a Premiership club.
Is that a little bit? No, I mean, I experienced that at Tottenham, where I think things got left a little bit in the end because they knew they were going to rebuild the whole project, admittedly on the same site. but that's coming for Everton, isn't it? So is there a little bit of a case of that, maybe, in fairness?
No, it just smacks of there's the running. There's a reoccurring theme throughout the whole club. It's just like treading water. Everything. Like, we don't need to speak to the fans. They only want to talk about the stadium. It's the only thing the club really posts is stadium updates. Yeah, they just don't explain anything that they're doing, what the thought process is, what is our strategy, why are we doing this? Graham Shaw just smacks off. Bill Kenwright put somebody on the board, giving them a promotion that's going to be thankful to him and is going to look after him and say good things about him. When what this club needs and what Moshiri should have done when he took over is get rid of all of them and bring people in that have got nothing to do with Everton and know about how to be successful in their own individual areas. And we just haven't got any of that anywhere.
So is Moshiri at fault for that, or is he at fault for some of the ridiculous spending that we've obviously covered off, which has left you in a pretty precarious position?
So as well as Moshiri sort of keeping people at the club longer than I think should be there, he doesn't allow people to do the jobs properly. So he interferes as and when he decides he wants to. Now he's the owner, so people say, well, he's entitled to do that. But it's very hard to gauge whether people are good at their jobs or not if you and they don't actually know, or they're not allowed to do the job. And at what point is this guy going to come in and actually say, well, we're not going to do that, we're going to do this? And then how can he hold you to account afterwards? And that's why Marcel Brands, it's really difficult to gauge, in all fairness, how good or bad he was. Because some decisions were his, some decisions weren't. By all accounts, it was Moshiri and his agent mate, Kia Jorkabin, that brought Iwobi to the club. So there's sort of 20 odd million pounds spent on a player that, by all accounts, Marcel Brands was saying, no, don't do this. He only goes and does it. And then you haven't got any more money to spend in that window in positions that you need to strengthen or on players that you want.
It's not just the physical signings, though. People say, okay, right, so there's a couple of 100 million of the problem. You've now probably spent, I think it was 32 million I saw prior to Benitez sacking you paid in compensation during the Moshiri era. Yeah. And the wages have gone up since 2016 from 84 million to 165.
Yeah.
And the team's not better.
No.
The team was better 5 years ago, arguably. Is that fair? Or
no, it's absolutely fair. It was the squad that sort of Roberto Martinez. Well, I mean, in all fairness, Martinez sort of chipped away at the squad, and he did make it infinitely worse before Moshiri come along. I mean, God, we signed some rubbish. Mo Besic, Aruna Kone, the Alcaraz, Nias, Umar Nias. I mean, but then Moshiri come in, and obviously he come in at a time, I think Martinez only had about 10 or 11 games, so it's sort of Moshiri's give him a chance, but things were bad at that point. And there was a lot of fan protests to get Martinez out because we were just shipping goals at an alarming rate again. It was very much like that how the last few games have gone for us. So off he went. And that was the beginning of the Moshiri era with good old Steve Walsh, who was the first director of football to start wasting a load of money on the likes of, Balassi and Klassen, Sigurdsson, etc., etc.
294 million net spend since Moshiri became owner.
It's just scary, but I mean, it's the transfer fees and the wages, and you're just not getting value for money to any level. I mean, it's not so bad if you can move the players on and sort of claw your money back or take a slight hit. I think Luka Dean's probably the first player for many, many years
since Lukaku, I guess,
that we've actually been able to get good years from, good performances from, and then move on for at least what we paid for them, if not more. That's why, from a business point of view, it made sense.
25 million in the end is cheap, isn't it? Really?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Is it? It seems
I think
a
it is
decent
in the
amount
modern
of money
market,
to me.
yeah.
I mean, I sort of
Proven
said,
Premier League player.
I sort of said, I guess we'd get 25 to 30 million. I don't see anybody paying more than that for him. He's 29 in a few months.
True.
He's on big money. He's on. I think he was on estimated to be on about 160 grand a week.
No.
So yeah. He was. Well, that was why he went.
Oh,
that was why he went.
That'll help you with the FFP.
That's what I mean. That's why, Rodriguez didn't want to play for us anyway. So he was going. It wasn't a fallout with Benitez. He didn't want to play for Everton. So it suited us for him to go anyway. He wanted to leave. His wages were horrendous. And like you say, Luca Dean, 29 in a few months. Yeah, I was saying he was the best left back in the league for years. He's been horrendous this season. He very clearly just didn't want any of the manager. And he spat his dummy out because his role was adjusted. But I absolutely think Benitez was doing it on purpose because he wanted him out anyway.
There might have been some pressure to get him out though. Kieran Maguire, we did a podcast on this. I'm going to say back in December. It might have even been November now, but we looked at FFP wiggle room of clubs, and Kieran Maguire's investigation suggested that Everton would 5 million the wrong side of wiggle room and would need to sell players in the next 12 months to stay in line with FFP. What we don't know yet is we don't know the financial results from 2020-21, and with no stadiums in the ground, we can only hypothesize that they're going to be bad.
Yeah.
And the situation may even be worse than has been predicted. The transfers this window with Mikalenko, Patterson and Dean have kind of leveled it out, particularly when you factor in getting Dean's wages off the books as well. I mean, I had no awareness that he was on that higher salary. That's astronomical, actually. One of the other big boys is going to have to go in the summer, though, aren't they? By the looks of it.
You would expect it. It wouldn't surprise me if Pickford gets sold, and one of Richarlison or Calvert-Lewin.
Could be all three, couldn't it? Really?
I mean, yeah.
And start again. It might not be the worst thing.
I think it depends. It depends on who comes in next, and obviously who's interested in those players and whether anybody will pay the fees that the club will want. They've both got plenty of time on the contract, so I think I think the club would want 70, 80 million pounds for each of them. So whether anyone's prepared to pay that, I mean, I could see PSG coming in for Richarlison. Who would come in for Dominic Calvert-Lewin? I'm not too sure, and pay that money. So it wouldn't surprise me if Dom's still here. But I'm expecting Richarlison and Pickford to go in the summer.
I think one of them's going to need to go to level out the FFP, is what it sounds like. And of course, you've got to improve the squad at the same time. That's why I think it might be a couple of them, because you do want to reinvigorate the squad. If you just sell Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison and Pickford, you really are a team that's going to be fighting with relegation, essentially. So you got to get new players in as well. And that's why it might be better for Everton if they all go, possibly. What do you want in the short term? What do you want for Saturday in the first instance? Villa at home, Saturday lunchtime. What do you want to see Saturday? And I take it, are we expecting Duncan Ferguson in the dugout?
There's been nothing said. The players go back to training tomorrow, bizarrely.
Yeah, we should say we're pre-recording at Monday night at this stage.
They've had a couple of days off. God knows why. They certainly don't deserve it. But yeah, they're back in training Tuesday morning. At the time of recording, I haven't seen anything released to say who's taking training, but it will obviously be Duncan Ferguson.
Yeah, that's the assumption, isn't it? He's not one of the names that's been released today.
No.
It's all Benitez's kind of entourage.
And this is what's frustrating. I wish they'd have just come out and said that Duncan Ferguson will be in charge of the game on Saturday, and then start to get a bit of a little bit of good feeling about the game, because people will start thinking back to the game that we had against Chelsea. Because it's not going to be much fun with them rocking up. Gerrard, Coutinho, who always scored against us, and obviously Luca Dean, exactly. So, the script's already written as far as Evertonians are concerned.
I suppose El Ghazi can't even play for you, can he?
No, he can't. No, he can't. And I bet you no one's had the foresight at Everton to put something, even if it's a gentleman's agreement, to say the Dean won't play. But there's no way we'll have done that. He'll absolutely be on.
He's got to play now, having played against United, doesn't he?
That's it. And so, the way, he was back to his old self, wasn't he, against Man United. He didn't look like a player that hadn't played for a few weeks. He was, that was the Luca Dean that we're used to seeing. And the thought of him running up and down the left wing and Seamus Coleman at right back is just petrifying, to be honest.
You've just convinced FPL managers to buy him, especially if Villa do end up with a double game week. That's a different pod for a different time. What about between now and the end of the season? I mean, do you want an immediate new full-time coach, or would you be happy to say Ferguson's got the ship till the end of the season? At least the crowd will get behind Big Dunk.
Yeah, I think our best bet is to give it to Duncan and give him an opportunity. The names that are linked with the job, none of them excite me. None of them. I mean, I got it massively wrong on Benitez, like so could easily be wrong on some of the ones linked. But I just think what Duncan done after Silva went is exactly what we need right now. And he did get a bit of a tune out of the likes of Mason Holgate and Michael Keane, because he didn't do what Rafa and Marco have done. He didn't expose their weaknesses. He tried to put the team together to play to their strengths. And I'm sure a lot of people remember the game against Chelsea. You know, we almost played like the away team. We just got stuck in. You know, it was all what you'd expect an Everton team to perform like, full of commitment, tackles, and direct football. And the crowd doesn't respond to that. And that's absolutely what we need against Aston Villa, because it's going to be a bit of it's almost going to feel like a mini derby with him in there.
There's a few already think that like short term it would be good for Calvert-Lewin as well. Is there a link in that?
Well, definitely. I mean, if Dunk comes in and takes charge of the game, which I definitely expect he will, I just think he'll go 4-4-2. He'll play Dom and Mitchie up front, and he'll do exactly what he done against Chelsea. You know, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of the 4-4-2 I saw Rafa pick against Norwich. I'm sure Duncan's will look differently. There's not a chance Solomon Rondon will get 30 seconds. I can guarantee that.
Won't get on the pitch, no chance. Yeah.
No.
All right,
no.
I'll have a side bet with you off.
No,
camera.
I think Ferguson's more likely to strangle him, and then he won't be able to play. No, there's no way Duncan's having him. No way.
What do you make of the Roberto Martinez links? I mean, at the time, he's favourite to get the job. There's some reports suggesting he's been offered it. You're not convinced that that's necessarily the case. It does sound like it might be who Moshiri wants, and I think we should probably say Moshiri here rather than Everton. Yeah. That it might be a bit of work to get him out the Belgian FA in any case. What do you understand at this point?
Yeah. Well, at this point, it looks like the Belgian FA are doing a better job of running Everton than Everton are. Because if they keep hold of Roberto Martinez, that'll put the icing on the cake of Rafa going. It would be a horrendous. I can't really think of a worse appointment, to be honest, than Roberto Martinez. But my understanding is there's some cracking sources on Twitter in the sort of Everton community, and they were listening to a Spaces for a couple of hours last night, and so it very much appears that it's Bill Kenwright who's decided, like he did before Benitez.
That's just Kenwright, not Moshiri.
No, it's just Kenwright's pinning his vote on Roberto Martinez. He loves him because he's a nice fella. So of course, yeah, that should give him the Everton job, shouldn't it?
But Moshiri's got final say, right?
Yeah, but Farhad's got his agent mate Kia sounding out every man and his dog, which is why there's all these newspaper links on almost an hourly basis saying about Potter turning the job down or Mourinho not being interested or whoever.
You don't want that, mate.
Kia's just putting the feelers out. So, Nuno will be linked, I'm sure.
Nuno had an interview with you in the summer, I know.
Yeah,
he completely bombed the interview.
Yeah,
he completely bombed the interview.
Yeah. And then he bombed his practical at Tottenham, didn't he?
Well, yeah, it wasn't the practical, the physical we got badly wrong, didn't he? Oh dear. I mean, yeah, no, I agree with you. The names don't inspire much. And the only thing I'd say from the outside, I mean, Martinez would be bizarre because at the end of the day, Moshiri was in the door, as you said, 10 games or so, and sacked him was basically almost his first job as Everton owner. So then to go full circle, I have to say, from the outside, I do feel like some of the stick that Martinez gets is a little bit over the top. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's your club, obviously, but when you come in the door for a season, you played some great stuff. You finished 5th, and you're miles away from that at the moment. Now, I know it went really badly. As you said, he brought players in that didn't actually improve the squad.
Yeah.
You conceded a shed load of goals, kind of getting worse and worse season on season. But it was a period there you were a good side, mate. As good as you'd been certainly since David Moyes had left.
That first season was the best season that we've. I mean, I know we didn't. We finished 5th. We didn't get the Champions League like we did under Moyes, but the football was the best football that we've ever played in the Premier League.
Probably the best Everton side I've seen in terms of quality.
Yeah. It was absolutely brilliant season. We got, I think, it's the highest amount of points anyone's ever got and not got in the top 4, because we got 70 odd points that season.
I'm going to ruin it for you. Arsenal 75, 17, 18.
Okay. So, you sort of, it's difficult with points and positions, isn't it? Because it depends on the season that you're in. It's hard to compare them. But yeah, the football was outstanding. But we come in off the back of obviously Moyes, who had a really good squad established and a really good defence. And basically Martinez went out and on deadline day got Gareth Barry, Romelu Lukaku, and Gerard Deulofeu, and all 3 of them were sorely needed in terms of improving the squad and indeed the team. Because Gareth Barry was a hell of a signing. He was a little bit like Milner when he went over the road. Most people like, what's going on there? Why have they got him? But Barry was outstanding for us. The problem with Roberto was the longer he stayed in charge, the worse we got. The more influence he had on our defence, the worse it became. Leon Osman wrote in his book about the fact we never practiced set pieces. Roberto Martinez didn't believe in it. But
neither did Rafa Benitez's Everton, by what I've been watching the last few months.
No, well, I think it's worse with Benitez because we did practice them. He said that we work on it in training and we've still shit, yeah. At least Roberto could say, well,
I didn't bother.
We don't practice. So how good could we be? But the signings and the style of football showed that first season it was outstanding, but it just degraded into sideways passing in our own half.
Yeah, I don't think you should ever go back to a manager that's sacked anyway. He says pining for Pochettino one day, but the circumstance feels a little bit different. And I wouldn't want Poch back at Tottenham right now. I just think it's too soon. I think it's the same. Like maybe in 10 years, you could look at it, owners different, whole players are completely different, etc. I mean, what does Seamus Coleman think, for example, go, I've seen this bloke before. I mean, it's not exactly endorsing based on, him and Leon Osman would have played together for the club for a long time. Coleman would think similar things and stuff.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think when players who have played for the fella, are coming out and sort of openly saying it'd be a horrendous appointment, it's a pretty good indicator that it probably would be. And they never listened to the fans with Benitez, and they should have. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? You can't. The fans don't always get it right. We certainly never got it with Moyes because most of the fan base didn't want David Moyes back. And by all accounts, Moshiri listened to them and Carlo, I think, quite luckily.
But he didn't listen to him on Benitez, did he?
Fell in his lap. Well, I think that's why. Because I think Moyes was getting the job. He agreed. Again, he was Kenwright's man. Kenwright put Moyes forward. It was all agreed. He was going to take the job. And then circumstances just fell, luckily, for Moshiri, that Carlo Ancelotti got sacked by Napoli and was available and was interested. So Moshiri will always just go with the name, whether it's a player, whether it's a manager. If it's a name, it's like a little bit something shiny, bit of silver.
So before I finish, Wayne Rooney.
No, I like the idea, and I wanna be able to say, let's give it to Rooney. But he's doing an amazing job.
Yes, I know.
It's just amazing. But he's doing it in a league and at a club where they're in a no-lose situation, aren't they? They're down. Everybody saw the points deduction and went, they're down. That I don't believe those players or him they've got no fear. It's like, let's just go see. Let's see what we can do. The players are bought into what he's doing. By all accounts, he raves about their attitudes. Well, he ain't coming into a good squad with good attitudes at Everton.
And the fears will be massive compared to, I know what you're saying. There's nothing to lose at Derby to a certain extent. I understand what you're saying.
If Wayne comes in and he loses the first 2 or 3 games, or, gets maybe a point, he's bang up against it, and then the fixtures start turning. We've got Man City coming up 3 or 4 games time, and then they could come and rinse us, and then all of a sudden, it quite quickly turns. So I don't think I'd love to see him manage Everton somewhere down the road. I just don't think now at the right time. I absolutely think the thing that makes sense to me is Ferguson.
I think you might be right, and it might be that the summer is okay for Wayne Rooney, possibly even. But I think right now, I agree. I think the best thing for Wayne Rooney would probably be stay at Derby, and I think it would be a very big risk. Although he's doing an amazing job, it would be a big risk at the moment to change from that environment. I think you're right, into that culturally is just not right at Everton at the moment. What's gone on at Derby is not the players' fault. Again, it's mismanagement. Actually, what's happening at Everton is mismanagement at the top level as well. But there's a real problem with the playing squad at the moment that needs. But Rooney they'd instantly respect him, mate. They'd instantly respect him because of what he's achieved, obviously, at the club throughout his career, etc. The big name, but he knows how Evertonians feel, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the reason, one of the main reasons I wanted to get, or I would like to get behind it is, I was dead against Arteta coming to Everton because it just petrified me, the fact that he's never managed anybody. And he's been with Pep, but it's different when you're a number 2. The game's filled with number 2s who have just been absolutely hopeless as managers. So I didn't want Arteta anywhere near us. But I've said a few times on Twitter, when results weren't going well for Arsenal, you could clearly see what he's trying to do. He had a really difficult job, and he's weeding out a lot of the bad eggs there.
I can see that he's sending them all out on loan so they don't have to play football matches.
So they don't have to play games. Yeah, scared.
We're joking, Arsenal fans. We're joking.
I mean, why he hasn't weeded out Granit Xhaka beggars belief. But I'm really impressed with him. So you think, well, why? If Mikel Arteta can do that, why couldn't Wayne Rooney? I mean, he worked under Sir Alex Ferguson for most of his career, so I'm sure he picked up a thing or two from him. And he's got his hands.
To be fair, I'm sure he would have picked up a few things, good and bad, from Van Gaal and Mourinho and the like as well. In fairness, so and obviously he worked under Moyes originally as a boy, obviously as well, and the England coaches.
Yeah. Even if he's seeing managers, do things wrong, then that helps, because I can't imagine Ferguson. He wouldn't have learned too many things wrong off Sir Alex, but certainly the others he might have thought, hang on, okay, I see how that turns out if you go down that road. But I just feel like it could be a bit like, I remember Marco Silva at Hull. They were down, weren't they? He went to Hull and they were down. New manager, never been in the Premier League. Everybody on Soccer Saturday was laughing at him, writing him off. He got in the ass from us on loan. He got a lad from Liverpool, Markovic, his name, something like that. But he had been performing, and all of a sudden Hull had hope where before there was none. But I think that sort of comes when players are playing without any fear, and quite quickly. I mean, there's already a lot of fear around Goodison at the minute anyway, but quite quickly it could turn very, very, very hostile and very, very nasty for him. So, Big Dunk for me is the smart play, because if we get a lift like we did last time, we get 2 or 3 wins. Then suddenly you can take your time, can't you? You can give him the rest of the season.
Next games,
give an opportunity.
A massive. Before I let you go, Sean, I want to ask you, them next 4 games: Villa at home, Newcastle away, Leeds at home, Southampton away. How many points do you think you'll get in them 4 games?
Oh, I couldn't even guess, because I don't know what
you can, because I'm going to
basing it on. Really, I mean, if we base it on Ferguson getting those games, I'd say maybe 7.
Sean, you picked up 5 points in the last 4 months, mate. That's how quickly it could change.
We get 2 wins and a draw from them with Dunk. new sort of manager bounce. Even
if you get that, I think this is the part why I mentioned it. If you do that in the next 4, you're safe, mate. That'd be enough, get you to 25, 26 points and ahead of that 1 point per game. The fear for me as an outsider would be looking at it and going, say you only pick 1 or 2 points up in those 4 games, or maybe even just 3 points. What comes afterwards looks rough till the end.
Yeah. I know. That's what's terrifying, the running. I'm just hoping, Yeri's come back. I'm just hoping we can keep him fit. Like I said, it doesn't matter who to give the job to. You can't surely do worse than what Benitez was doing. I just don't see how it's possible.
I'm in agreement. I think the football club needs an uplift, and the first thing it needs is the fans to feel like they've got a team they can go and support, which have not felt like they could do, I guess, for years now, because obviously they're not seeing much of the Carlo Ancelotti, obviously because of COVID and whatnot. So it didn't last for very long. No. So, yeah, the people up there are good people. They need to feel their football club has an identity in the first instance. And I think you're right. I think Duncan Ferguson probably at least for the next few games, just to ease the ship, is the right thing to do.
I would sort of reiterate though, and the sort of main sort of point to sort of take from this and come out of it with the, sort of the subject is what's going on at Everton and why we're in the mess that we're in. The manager is almost secondary at this point now. The main problem at the club is without doubt the guy who's running it and the way he makes his decisions, the people who he's listening to.
He's not going to go anywhere though, is he?
Well, I think he will when the stadium's built. I think once the stadium's built, he will bail straight away. He'll sell the club and he'll be gone.
What you can't afford to do is be going into that stadium in the Championship, mate.
No, exactly. Well, I just don't think there will be a stadium if that's the case. I don't see it ever getting finished. Wow. And that's the danger. That's if he gets this wrong and he brings in Martinez or whoever, Nuno, I do think we'll get relegated because that squad, just if a manager doesn't come in and play the right way, and that's why Dunk knows these players. He's seen what works better and what doesn't work. So I don't believe for a minute he'll be doing the things that Rafa was doing and exposing the likes of Michael Keane and Mason Allgate, etc. Playing Gomez in midfield in a midfield 2, putting Rondon on the pitch. But if someone else comes in and does those sort of daft things, we could absolutely get relegated. But Moshiri is Everton's biggest problem. So as much as his money has benefited us in terms of getting the stadium built, or he's helped facilitate get the stadium built, the just mind-numbingly bad decisions he's making along the way and interfering in everybody's jobs at the club is just massively holding the club back and sending us potentially to the Championship.
I know another set of fans who feel very similar to you, but for slightly different reasons in terms of being held back. I get that completely. I think you'll be all right, Sean. I will say I think partly of it is because I'm not sure that 2 of the teams in the bottom 4 can put enough points together to make it a real serious concern, because if you stay at 1 point per game, you stay up as far as I'm concerned. Calvert-Lewin back now, Richarlison back now, Yerry Mina back now, a few good fixtures. I wouldn't be surprised if you do enough over the next 4 games and then he's quite calm for the rest of the season. Sean, thank you so much for your time, my friend. Where can everyone give you a follow on Twitter?
So I am at spirit_blues.
Good man. Thank you so much, Sean. Me and Suj will be back on Wednesday with our Sky Fantasy Football podcast. And this week's Clash of Correspondents, as a reminder, is Rotation FPL and Ricky Saunders previewing Chelsea-Tottenham Game Week 23 encounter on Thursday. Other than that, thanks again to Sean. Good luck to Evertonians for the rest of the season. Cue music, please, man child.